Hello, I'm Sam Stoll. I just graduated this spring in May with a BFA in Musical Theatre and a minor in dance. And I guess my story of coming to Mankato State was pretty interesting because my senior year of high school, I really wanted to do vocal performance. And so I auditioned at a bunch of different schools and I checked out some of the big private schools. And one of my choir director and theater director said, hey, there's a BFA program down in Mankato, and they do musical theater. And I had done a few shows, and I was like, do I go there? Otherwise, I was going to go to St. John's for music. And it was this decision between St. John's for music or here for musical theater. And so I just took a chance on it and was thrown into the mix. And yeah, it's been amazing. I found out how much I love theater. I mean, my freshman year I was thrown into the Odyssey in the chorus, which was just absolutely ridiculously challenging for me, which was a lot of fun. Got to do something that was not stereotypical musical theater, which I had done because in high school I did Cinderella and Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, which are just high school classics. So yeah, I guess I just was thrown into the mix right away, and I loved it. And then my sophomore year I auditioned, got into the BFA program, and then that same year I also got to start my first lead in college, and I got to be Mark in Rent, which was also a blast. And then it just went up and up from there, and it was just a lot of fun. I learned so much. It's funny because one of the shows that I think I learned the most from was the Odyssey, because I auditioned. I didn't have a good audition. It's okay. But I got cast in the chorus, and it was one of those shows where I learned. I think it was nice that I got a really good chorus role in a very ensemble-based show, because then I learned how important it was for the team effort of theater, and to be thrown in as a freshman and to really do all the backstage work, and it was just such an ensemble heavy show, and I learned a lot about myself and how much I loved acting, because there was no music. It wasn't a musical, and I was used to doing musicals, so that was really, really eye-opening for me. And then I guess the next big show was Rent for me, and I got to be Mark Cohen, and I met some of my best friends that I have today, and that's just such a show where you can't leave that show not being changed a little bit. It really hits deep. And that was my first real intense musical experience as a lead, because it's an opera and you're singing rock music the whole show. And I remember the last weekend we made it to the last show, and I remember Adam and I, who played Roger in the show, we were both just for the next 3 days we're almost voiceless, because we were so tired from doing the show. And that was really challenging vocally for me, because before I got here I could only sing probably belt to a D, and then after that show I realized, once I actually figured out how my voice worked, I could belt to a G. And so it was a pretty crazy transition there, that's for sure. Well, I don't know, I guess I saw Rent, I saw the movie version. I never saw the stage version. I saw the movie version when I was a sophomore in high school, and I loved the show and I loved the music, but I never really connected to a lot of the characters except for Mark. And so when I got cast, it's funny because when I auditioned, I went for Roger, which now I look back and I think that's ridiculous, because I see myself so much more as a Mark now that I've done it. But he's just, there's a lot of me that I see in him. I don't know, a lot of the personality and the different things like that. But I don't know, he's such a beautiful character, because he sits in the middle of all this turmoil and all this drama that's happening in all these lives with, different things, financial reasons, and then obviously AIDS, and there's so many different things, but he's the one person that just watches it all. And it was really interesting. It was really challenging for me to actually, I don't know, dig deeper than what I have been doing in some musicals where you don't have to dig so deep. And I remember there was nights before I would go on stage where I had a little post-it note, and I would say, I listed a few things that just to remind myself before I go on stage, because it's so easy to forget when you're doing, to think about the next song or the next scene change or the next, line that you have. And I remember I'd go on stage and I'd read, my friends are dying, and just different poignant little things to remember right before I went on stage, so I could remember the reason why we do shows and why we do, theater. And that was one of those shows I remember the last couple nights we would just be crying during the curtain call, because it's not only are we going to miss the cast, because, every show that you do, a cast is so unique and will never be the same, but the fact that, the material is just so beautiful, and, you talk to people after the show and they say, you know, like that really connected to me. I had a friend who died of, you know, this disease, and it's just like, you realize like theater isn't just entertainment. It's like a way that we can speak to each other as humans, like with our souls and with our hearts, and it's really beautiful. Like I learned a lot from doing Rent, and I met some of my best friends too, you know, and working with Paul Finocchiaro was just one of the best experiences ever, and I love working with him. So yeah, it was amazing. When we did Altar Boys, it was yeah, I remember when I auditioned, I was like, this show about Catholic altar boys, it's kind of funny. I'm like, I hope it doesn't get, you know, offensive, you know, it's, you know, and I just went into it being like, I'm sure it won't be, it'll be great. And it wasn't. It was a blast, and I met also some really, really great friends in the show, but that show was a lot of fun because, you know, you need to be able to laugh at yourself. And I'm Catholic, and so like watching the show, when I saw it, I looked up videos of altar boys, and I just thought it was hilarious because you gotta be lighthearted about things. You know, you gotta be able to make fun of yourself and make fun of the things you believe in. And it was such a lighthearted show, and another challenging show because that was one of the first really big dance shows I did. You know, I was in producers and some different chorus shows where I did some dancing, and I had to like tap and different things, but that show was brutal with dancing. I remember there were nights we'd get done with rehearsals, oh my gosh, and we'd have like 2 hours of notes, and it was just going home. And I remember I lived with Carter Allen at the time, who played Abraham in the show, and I was Luke, and we would get home and we would just like sit on our dorm beds, and we'd be like, oh my gosh, how are we going to put this all together? How are we going to get it all tomorrow, you know? Because it's, you know, we get notes from the music, the dancing, and the acting, and all three of those in that show are just like, you know, so intense. So it was a really good experience though. Altar Boys was also one of my favorite shows. I've been so blessed with the shows that I, you know, got to do while I was here. Yeah, that show was great. It was so much fun. And Spring Awakening is probably my favorite musical. When I heard the music, I hadn't even seen it, and I listened to the entire soundtrack, and I already knew that I was obsessed with the show, and it was my favorite show. And I remember when we found out that we were going to be doing it, I was like, okay, it's like I really want to do the show. And once again, I wanted to be Melchior and not Moritz. And not that I wouldn't want to be Moritz, but I wanted to be Melchior, and Jake wanted to be Moritz. And then we auditioned, and we both got the opposite roles, which was really funny. But yeah, Moritz is such an interesting character because he's so hurt inside. He's just like a wounded animal, and he's so warped, you know, just by like the system. And like I think it's just, that shows such a beautiful, I don't know, a beautiful example of like the people that get lost in the cracks. In schools and kids, and I mean in everywhere. Like it's just, people get lost in the mix of everything, in the structure, and because they're maybe a little far behind, they get, you know, less attention, then they just end up falling and off the train completely. And so I remember preparing for that show was really interesting because I was like, okay, I have to commit suicide every single night. I'm like, how am I gonna, you know, get through this? And it was, I don't know, it was an amazing experience. I remember just like every night that I would do the scene where I would have to kill myself, it's just like remembering that a scene like that needs to be have so much care taken with it, because there are people that have been in those situations and have, you know, attempted that, and there's some people that, you know, and it's just like, it's very, very dark, and it's a very touching, sore subject for a lot of people, and a lot of people in the audience, you know, like maybe know people that's happened to, and it's like rough. So it's like, it's a lot of pressure when you go into a scene like that, and you remember, okay, you know, like, I can't just, like, this needs to be somewhat real, because, like, people have experienced this before, and it's, you know, it's not a beautiful thing at all. But I remember after that number, when Don't Do Sadness, and then when I would have to kill myself, I remember sitting under the stage while everyone else sang Left Behind, and I would just cry some nights, because it's just, like, you just think about all the people that are in such a dark place that they have to get to that point, and it's awful. It's just so sad, and it's just like heartbreaking. And I remember like doing that show was just, oh my gosh, it was just so hard. And like I had like all my best friends were in the show, and like, oof, it was heavy. It was very, very heavy. But it was probably my favorite show that I've ever done, I think. You know, I mean, for different reasons, you do different shows, and there's, you know, good aspects, good people in the shows, good music, but in overall, one of the best experiences that I learned a lot about myself too, you know, because at that point I was going through like a change in my life too, and it was, you know, trying to compare yourself to a person that's so hurt, but also separate yourself so you don't like hurt yourself when you're acting, and it was beautiful. It was great. Well, some people say, well, you do so many shows, do you have time for extra things? Do you have time to like actually work on your acting technique or this or your dance technique? And it's like, yes, we do, because we're trained not only to like do a lot of shows, but by doing a lot of shows, we're told we need to do a lot of things, so we're always busy. And like, I just think through the different shows that I've done and the progression of the shows, which is interesting because it kind of did really connect in the different ways that the characters and the different roles like really like built and almost got more difficult as I went. And I think, I started dancing when I got here. I didn't have any like real dance experience. Like I like danced like just free dancing, but like never like any like technique. Like I took some ballet, but it was mostly like leading girls around, and that's just not the same thing. So I like was thrown into it initially when we did producers, and I did tap and I did some jazz, and I was just like thrown into the mix, and I loved it, but it was also like extremely hard for me. So I took a lot of dance classes, and I had taken a lot of PSEO classes. So I was like, oh, I can maybe take a dance minor, and I ended up taking a whole bunch of modern. I took ballet like 4 times, jazz, tap, like as much as I could. And the shows really like lent to my dance growth too, because we got to do Altar Boys, which pushed me with sort of like kind of like jazz, hip hop a little bit. I don't know exactly what you would call it, but then Chorus Line, which is like iconic, and that was great. And working with Paul Fini-Chiaro like really helped my dance technique too. But like, yeah, it just the roles and the dance shows that I did really built and really improved me as an actor and a dancer and a singer all at the same time. And like for the acting portion of it, I think one of the most difficult roles and one of the most rewarding roles was Melina in Kiss of the Spider Woman. And it was one of those roles that I was like, when the audition came up, I was like, okay, I know Kiss of the Spider Woman, it's a good show, and I was like, oh, Melina's, like an interesting, fun character, and I was like, I'll just, go for it. It's something totally different. I get to be like an actual like character. Like there's not a lot of me that I saw in Melina, and then obviously the more you do a role, you do see yourself a lot in it. But it was, that show acting-wise was so eye-opening for me because I had to create everything from the ground up. Like it wasn't, some characters like Emmett in Legally Blonde, like I see so much of myself in that character, and so I just get to be like dorky on stage, and it's just like, and that's like a little easier for me. But like Melina was, he's so hurt, but he's also like, he's fabulous and he's glamorous, but he's also very, and he has like this juxtaposition, like he is like a wounded animal at points, like Moritz was, and then at moments he's just like the star of the show, like in his mind. And so that was like acting-wise was one of the best roles for me to do. I think it really pushed me, and I was on stage the entire time, so I didn't have time to go off stage and like, like re-pump up my energy. Like I had to keep pushing through it, and it was, the material was just beautiful. That show was just beautiful, and I love that character so much. Like I think it was probably my favorite role I ever did. And then, yeah, we got to the end of the year and we did Drowsy, and that show was really great. But yeah, I just took a whole bunch of dance classes. Probably my favorite part of, I shouldn't say favorite part, but like the best part of going to MSU is how much I pushed myself dance-wise, because I think that's something that as a guy, as a male theater performer, I will get a lot of jobs for, because a lot of guys can dance, but like if you can like really dance, like it's just, it helps you so much in casting opportunities. And like I just found out like the joy of dancing too. Like I would love to do modern dance, if theater didn't work out initially, like I would love to be in a company. Like I just learned to find the different passions and the different, the 3 different areas: singing, dancing, and acting. Yeah, the transition was really interesting. I last spring, my junior spring, I know a bunch of friends were graduating, Emily Jansen and Larissa Schmitz, and just a bunch of different friends that I had known, and I was like, I'm ready to go. I was like, I just want to go. I want to like do what they're doing. I want to audition. I want to like see what I can do. And then I was like, oh, I got to wait out a year. And I'm really glad I waited, because it was a really good year. But it definitely, the last couple of months were like, oh, I can't wait, to start like actually working. And I got cast in a show called Philly the Musical. It was an original rock musical that they wrote and produced in the Twin Cities. And so that was really fun. I was doing that while I was finishing school, so during like the the last 3 weeks of school, I was every single night after rehearsals would, or in between rehearsals, would drive up to the cities, have rehearsal, and then drive back. And that was already like a huge push into the real world, because I was like, okay, it's not all based around school now. Like, I have to like actually drive up to this job I have to do that's, pushing me a lot. And so that was good. And so when I graduated, I had rehearsals for Philly. We had a month of rehearsals, and we opened in June, and that was really great. It was awesome. I mean, I met wonderful people in the cities and some good connections, and we did it at the JCC Sabes Center, which was nice. And then while I was doing that, then I started rehearsals for Valley Fair, and I auditioned for them, and they were like, well, your schedule is so busy, because I had Hairspray and Philly, and they're like, it's going to be hard to figure this out. But then they were like, well, we'll make it work. You can be a swing for our show. So I'm doing that right now, and that's going to go, I'll be done in like the end of August. So that was also interesting, because then I was doing Philly rehearsals and Valley Fair rehearsals and driving across the city, and it was good because I was doing some good dancing, and in Valley Fair I swing 2 shows, so I cover 3 of the guy roles in their outside gazebo show, and then 2 of the roles in, they have a walk-around a cappella group. And then I also fill in for the karaoke, so I'm just kind of being used all over, and it's really good for me because, one, I need the money, obviously, right out of school, and it's really good to, like, be on my feet so much, because, like, already after this weekend, next week, I'll have to cover 3 different tracks of the 5. Yeah, of the 5 tracks I'm covering, which is really good for me, because it pushes me, and I, being cast as a swing is a really good thing, to push your dancing and your singing. And then after, and then I did Hairspray, obviously, and I had the wonderful opportunity to do choreography, which I had never really done before, which was really, really a great experience, and it really pushed me in that way, and got to be Link, which was one of those roles that I've always wanted to play, so that was so much fun. And yeah, so I guess after this weekend, I'll finish up Valley Fair, and then in September, I start rehearsals for Jekyll and Hyde, the Non-Equity National Tour, which I'm so thrilled about. I'll be playing Poole in the show, which is the butler, or the manservant to Jekyll. And yeah, I'm so excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. We have a month of rehearsal in September, and then we leave September 29th. We go to Pennsylvania, I think, in like 3 days. We drive like 900 miles. So it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be brutal. It'll be like 6 months of traveling, which will be awesome. I'm super excited. And then I guess after that, depends on how much money I save up. Hopefully, I would like to go to New York, because I know a bunch of the other graduates are going. Jake and Caitlin and Callie and possibly Emily Jansen. So I would like to join them out there. Otherwise, I would like to do a cruise. A cruise or another tour. Just like, I don't mind traveling. So yeah, I'm really, really excited. And we actually have 4 performances of Jekyll and Hyde in Burnsville, because that's where we're putting the show up. So yeah, you should come out and see the show. It's gonna be really fun. I haven't got my script yet. I'm just anxious now. But so far the 2 months that I've been out of school, it's been a wonderful experience, and I'm super excited. It's been interesting, being a performer here, because you'd think, initially you'd think, oh yeah, you have good audiences, you have patrons. Mankato's like, a big enough city where it can support good theater, and that's a good thing. But then you realize, like, there's actually people who really appreciate the big musicals, but they also appreciate like the small ones, like Kiss of the Spider Woman, that a lot of people don't know, or like Spring Awakening. And so, like, it was a really, really fun to grow up in the last 4 years in Mankato, and like meet people that like now I have good connections with, that I email every once in a while, and I say like, hey, this is what I'm doing, or they say, hey, we're coming to see the show, are you in it, or are your friends in it, what are you up to next? Like, it's really awesome to have support, especially as a student. It was great, and now as like a fresh like professional actor, to be like, we have people that actually care about theater, and not just like big commercial theater, but like the good theater that promotes like artistic or like social change and good things like that. So it's like, I met some really wonderful people, some like, I don't know, really passionate people about theater, and it really reminds us to appreciate performing, because sometimes we get caught up in the next audition, the next performance, the next thing, because I'm already thinking, I'm like, okay, I got, I'm doing this tour, what am I going to do next? Like, because you have to, it's kind of the name of the game. But it really grounds you when you have like supportive people. And like just now I just met someone in the parking lot, and she was just, you know, talking about the show and how much she loved like seeing, you know, us in the shows in the past 4 years. And it's been, yeah, that's been just a wonderful experience, meeting people. And it's sometimes in the most random places. You'll be like out at Walmart, you know, the middle of the night, you know, grabbing something before you go to study, and you'll like run into somebody. It's just, it's funny because everybody in Mankato really likes theater, and they're very supportive, and it's a wonderful community. Like it's sad to go just because it's been such a good experience meeting so many people, and the audiences are just so good. Like it's just so much fun, you know, like when you have a standing ovation and people are just like, they had a good time, you know, they can get away from their problems, from their daily lives, and just like take a break, you know. So that's great. Yeah, and I guess for the next, I don't know, in the next 5 years, I don't know. I mean, obviously there's the big dreams that I have, you know. I would love for someday to do something off Broadway, if not Broadway, you know. I'd love to, you know, chorus, whatever, you know, just be somehow involved. But I guess realistically, not that couldn't be realistically, but I think after the tour, I would really like, my goal would be to get a cruise, because a cruise is something that pays really well, and it's a really good experience for, you know, you're traveling, you're nonstop performing, you're like away from home, you're like, you know, meeting a lot of great connections. And a cruise is something that is really good for a resume. Same with the tour. So it's like, if I could, you know, meet some people on this tour, that maybe I'll get, you know, another tour or another cruise, or, you know, maybe I will come back to the cities, but I would love to go to New York and just try it and see what I could do, you know, even if I land something, you know, do an audition in New York and land something outside of New York. But I guess in 5 years, yeah, I would love to be in New York. I would love to be performing and like working my way up. And yeah, I would love to be on Broadway. I mean, that's the goal, you know. Otherwise, I would love to do film too. I'm just kind of, if I can get a job doing any type of theater or any type of film, like, I'll be happy, you know, if I can really bring that that joy to people. And, you know, I want to be able to do like theater that's like classic theater, you know. I want to do the big musicals, of course, you know, but at the same time I want to be able to do some of those smaller roles or those newer shows, you know, like original work, so I can really like, you know, dig deeper or like build a character for myself, you know. So, and I got to keep dancing. It's, you know, just you got to keep training. So yeah, I'm really excited. The next 5 years, who knows what will happen. So